Hello, good morning, class. Today we are from Syndicate 6. We will explain about our analysis for scenario planning. In this case, we take the case for PT Cement Industri Tibka. We are from Syndicate 6, consists of Andi Payuto Pradana, Teresa Noviani, Enjang Kusmana, Kevin Natana Susinto, and Claudius Adrianto Kusumo. Before we explain the detail about the scenario planning for this kind of industry, first we will explain about the company background. PT Cement Industri Tibika or PTCI is an Indonesian public company whose majority stake, about 83%, is owned and managed by SOE. In 2019, SOE acquired the company from multinational company, and in the same year, the company changed its name. It is Cement Industry JPK. This company runs an integrated business of cement, ready mix, concrete, and aggregate production. Especially in this current condition, the cement industry especially in Indonesia, is currently in oversupply. This condition has been felt for a long time, precisely since 2016. According to data from the Indonesia Cement Association, the total installed capacity of the cement industry in 2021 will reach 116 million tons. And in 2020, domestic cement sales and export were only about 71 million tons, with utilization rate of production capacity only reaching 61%. So based on this condition, we can conclude that the cement industry in Indonesia is of supply condition. This one is one of the issue that we will analyze for the scenario planning. The second issue is about the environment issue, because as we know, cement is an important construction ingredient used in virtually all countries, including Indonesia. But during their production, they will produce also CO2 or carbon dioxide as a byproduct of the chemical conversion. As you can see, limestone as the raw material will react with heat, and then during the production they will also produce the CO2. CO2 also emitted during the cement production by fossil fuel. Yeah, as we know, currently majority of the fuel that used for the cement production is coming from the fossil fuel. Then this fossil fuel, when used for the production, it will be produce the CO2 as the byproduct also. These two main issues from the oversupply production and also the environment issue, especially for CO2 production, we will use it as the base analysis as the main issue for the scenario planning for cement industry in the future. This one is step by step that we will use for the analysis to get the scenario planning for the cement industry. We will start with the define the user, and then we will explain about the key focal issue. The brief explanation about this issue already explained before. After we get the focal issue, we will explain about the driving force, and then continuing with critical uncertainties, and then scenario framework. From the scenario framework, we will decide the scenario, and then we will explain it in the narrative form, and then we will explain about early warning signal, and then before use, we will decide the implication and the option that can take by the cement industry for their future. Okay, now as a first step, we will explain about the user of this scenario planning. As we know, scenario planning is like the strategic analysis of the company for in the future. So the user of this scenario planning will be board of director of PT Cement Industri Tibika. It's because they are top level management that make the strategic decision related with the company. where each member of this BOD have their own interests related with the scenario planning. First, for SOE, the scenario planning can become the basis for them to making the decision in the company future investment. As for CEO, the scenario planning also can become the basis for them to planning the company strategic policy direction in increasing the company profit. For COO, can provide strategic guidance for them so that operational process can run effectively and efficiently. For marketing side, this scenario planning can be used as input for the company branding strategy to suit current market condition. And for the finance side, this scenario planning can be used as a basis for determining prioritize or the use of the company budget. After we define the user, we continue with the key focal issue. As we explained before, that we use two main issues as the basis for analysis the scenario planning for cement industry. The first one is how can we sustain our competitive advantage in the next 5 years, especially in the condition that currently cement industry is oversupply. And the second one is related with the environmental issue. We state that how can we substitute fossil fuel to reduce our CO2 footprint, because in the future, policy for the CO2 will be made by the government and it will affect to the industry, especially to the cement industry.
Hello, my name is Andri, and I will explain step number 3, the driving forces. In this instance, we're going to use SWOT analysis to identify the current condition of our company. First, the strengths. We have wide product portfolio starting from cement, concrete, and waste management. We have 15 years of experience in waste management, and we have integrated waste pre-processing and co-processing facilities. Our plant locations are very strategic. We are close to our market, and we have integrated ISO management system from quality, environment, safety, lab, energy, and risk. State-owned enterprises are also our market networks. However, we also have weaknesses. They are aging plant condition, less efficient dust filter using existing electrostatic precipitator for alternative fuel usage, high sulfur content in raw materials and coal, and less energy potential in developing WHRG. The opportunities for us, the first is the post-pandemic macroeconomic recovery in next year, and the implementation of advanced process control, such as digitalization and automation, might lead to the increase of plant efficiency. We also consider the further synergy with other state-owned enterprises as our opportunity. And the last opportunity is the government support in waste management, like building RFD or refuse-derived fuel facility. The threats that might come in the future is the lower infrastructure budget for 2022. We are afraid that it might influence the domestic demand for cement market. Stricter regulation, implementation of carbon tax, implementation of online emission monitoring system at KLHK, and if this bill passes, it might increase our production costs. The fluctuation of coal price and availability also threats. And then the FABA deletion as non-toxic and hazardous waste will lead to business competition. And COVID pandemic is still become uncertainty. Yeah, we're hoping that next year is better, but yeah, no one can guess. And the last threat is the new entrants in cement industry, mainly from foreign countries. And then we're going to analyze the attributes from the organization, transactional and contextual. The smallest bubble, the organization, is internal within our company. The first is asset utilization, management capability, operation efficiency, employee capability, corporate values, and leadership effectiveness. The second scope, the bigger, the transactional. This is specific in cement industry. Number 7 is customer demand. Number 8 is utilization. The utilization here is the comparison between the supply and the actual demand in Indonesian market. Next, number 9 is the coal supplier. And number 10, renewable energy supplier, coal price, and new competitor. While the biggest bubble, the contextual, the general condition, there are two. Number 13 is government regulation, and number 14 is the technology advancement.
Now let's continue to the next step, the critical uncertainties. We have seen the driving forces before, and now we are putting weights on the impact and the uncertainty. What is meant by the impact here? Impact here means that from each driving force that we have identified before, we estimate how much the impact would be for that driving force on the key focal issue. The higher the impact, we are putting the higher number in that column for that driving force, and vice versa. On the uncertainty, we are seeing how probable would that driving force to happen in the future. If it's certain, then it's lower number. And if it's less likely, then it's going to be higher number. So on the organization part, we have 6 items here on the driving forces: asset utilization, management capability, operation efficiency, employee capability, values, and leadership effectiveness. Now we have analyzed on each of the driving forces to the key focal issue that we set in front, and we put the weight on the impact and the uncertainty as below. On the transactional and industry area, we have identified also 6 driving forces. They are customer demand, utilization, coal supplier, renewable energy supplier, coal price, and new competitor. We analyzed as well for the impact and the uncertainty against the key focal issue. And we believe that these are the numbers that we're showing to analyze the impact. Continuing on the contextual, we have government regulation and the technology and advancement. Now, these 2 items have a high impact and also quite high uncertainty. Now we are combining all the 14 impact and uncertainties, and you can see in the bubble chart here, if you're putting the x-axis as the impact and the y-axis as the uncertainty, we can see that the most high, whether it's on the impact side or on the uncertainty, would be number 11 and number 13. Number 11 is the coal price, and number 13 is the government regulation. Why are those 2 items there, we believe, have the highest impact? Well, on the coal price itself, because basically the industry of the cement rely highly on the coal in the operational process. So when there's a change in the coal price, it would impact to the business of the cement high. And in terms of the uncertainty here, we believe that the price of the coal is something that cannot estimate easily. So there's a level of high uncertainty there, which would bring the impact to the business of the cement as well. So that's why it's one of the big items which has the highest impact and the uncertainty for this one. On the other hand, on the government regulation, it has high impact to the business because it regulates on how the business or the process of the operational activities should be conducted. And it may bring changes that the company needs to implement and probably with high cost as well to accommodate that. So that's why it has high impact to the business. On the other hand, we are still unable to foresee what kind of government regulation in the future that the government will implement. So it has quite high the uncertainty level there. So based on that, with the number 11 and number 13 having the highest impact and uncertainty for the business, we're choosing those two driving forces for the further analysis in the next step.
After we see the plotting between uncertainty and the impact, and the result, the most uncertainties were coal price and government regulation for the cement industry. Now let's have a look for the coal price. In the chart here, we see the coal price is unstable, especially since last year until now. In 2018, the coal price around 120 US dollar per ton, then decreased until 50 US dollar per ton in 2020, and then in 5 October, the coal price reached the highest price. It's 269.5 US dollar per ton. The case is triggered by increasing demand in China and political situation where in the similar time China banned the Australian coal. However, the coal price is also suddenly decreased until 150 yesterday. So this uncertainty, the coal price uncertainty, of course, will impact to the cement production cost. As we know, in the cement production, the fuel cost or the coal cost is around 30% of the total production. So every uncertainty will direct impact to the cement production cost. As a rule of thumb, for example, here, if increasing coal price from 80 to 150 US dollar per ton, it will impact to the total production cost around 30%. So imagine the uncertainty of the coal will be direct impact to the cement production. Now let's have a look for the second critical uncertainties, government regulation. From background before, it's already explained that the cement production will result the emission, especially CO2 emission. So every single ton cement production will result around 600 until 700 kilogram CO2 equivalent. So then how about the regulation in Indonesia? Also will impact to the cement business or cement industry business. We see here in 2004, Indonesia did ratification of the Kyoto Protocol, where every country obliged to reduce greenhouse gas or GHG emission or CO2 emission through GHG control using CDM or Clean Development Mechanism method. The laws also following by several laws So here the industrial business sector should become part of the Aksi Nasional Penurunan Emisi Gas Rumah Kaca or run ZRK. And then in 2012, Industrial Ministry defined the roadmap for CO2 emission reduction in Indonesia, where from baseline 2009 or 2010, it should be reduced until 3% in 2020. The roadmap for CO2 reduction is continue until now. In 2016, Indonesia also did ratification of Paris Agreement regarding commitment to reduce global temperature increase to below 1 degree Celsius. Another regulation is regulate that every industry should equip with continuous emission monitoring in their chimney. And then also it's regulate also regarding the reporting system using National Greenhouse Gas Information System or SIGN. And now the government also proposed legal plans or RUU for carbon tax implementation. The rate of carbon tax will be around 30 rupiah per kilogram carbon dioxide equivalent, or it will be around 2.1 US dollar per ton carbon dioxide equivalent. So this carbon tax will also impact to the cement production cost. It's estimated will impact until 14% of total production cost. And at the latest, as we know that this month or this week, there was COP26 summit in Glasgow, the United Nations Climate Change Conference. And for sure, the result will strengthen the environment regulation. And of course, it will impact also to the cement industry. And now let's continue to the next slide.
Now, when we are seeing the scenario framework, we are using the two driving forces here, the coal price and the government regulation, as the axis here. If we're putting it in the Cartesian axis, then we can see that the coal price has two arrows. To the left side, it means that it's low price. To the right side, it means it's high price. Government regulation is up and down. So when it's highly regulated, then the arrow is up. And if it's low regulated, the arrow is down. Now on the next step, step 6 on the scenarios, we are seeing 4 types of scenarios here: the green, gray, black, and yellow. If the government regulation is highly regulated and the coal price is high, then we have a scenario green, where the company is faced with higher investment activity because of the higher coal price, but it also has the possibility to have more environmentally friendly because it needs to seek the substitute of the coal price, which may have lower CO2. But due to the higher coal price, it means that it's higher production cost. That means that it needs to compensate it with the higher cement price. On the other side, when the coal price is low, but the government regulation is still highly regulated, it means that the company needs to fulfill the government regulation and find a way how to reduce the CO2 emission. And also there's a possibility where it has to face higher bureaucracy to handle or to fulfill the government regulation. in the government regulation is low and the coal price is low, that means that the company will have lower investment activity in terms of the cost. But since it's using a coal more, then it will have higher pollution that it creates, and it doesn't have to spend more on technology how to improve its process, because it can still use coal in the process due to the lower price. Now, when the government regulation is low, but the coal price is high, it will lead to the condition where the company will have basically higher cement price because of the higher production cost due to the coal price is high.
Now continue to 7-step narratives for key focal issue, how we can sustain our competitive advantage in next 5 years, and how we can substitute fossil fuel to reduce our CO2 footprint. So when the coal price law and regulation law, the possible narrative will be like this. Jakarta Post, 1st November 2026. High coal consumption in cement industry is remain, and industrial waste in Indonesia were not environmentally destroyed. And then, if the coal price law and government regulation hike, the possible narrative like this. Jakarta Post, 1st November 2026. PTCI successfully reduced CO2 by 10% from baseline 2010 and fully online emission monitoring at all gas chimney. And then the narrative, if the coal price hike and government regulation law, Jakarta Post, 1st November 2026. Alternative fuel consumption of PTCI increasing and only monitored by basic emission monitoring technology. And if the coal price hike and government regulation hike, will be the following narrative. Jakarta Post, 1st November 2026, PTCI operate 10 megawatt peak new solar power generation or equivalent 12 billion US dollar investment. In Wordsman Bangajin, 1st November 2026, PTCI has been successfully substitute coal 30% in all production line. And then for second step, we see the implication and option. If the coal price law and government regulation law, the implication will be like this: less initiative to substitute fossil fuel or coal, and less environment friendly cement manufacturing. The option for this implication is improve equipment efficiency, because the cement industry remains still fully fossil fuel, and then set up tight procedure and improve employees' mindset. And then if the coal price low and government regulation hike, the implication will be breakthrough to reduce CO2 emission, more pollution from coal handling and storage, because cement industry remain using 100% of the coal. So the option, investment on alternative fuel processing and co-processing facility, investment on bag filter, and then install wastewater treatment or IPAL to manage the pollution from coal handling and storage. And then if the coal price hike and government regulation hike, this implication will possible happen. Less investment in emission monitoring, less safe handling for hazardous waste, and tight alternative fuel competition. And the option, use third-party service for periodically emission monitoring, set up tight and safe handling procedure, and also set up long-term contract for the alternative fuel sourcing. And if the coal price hike and government regulation hike, the implication is, of course, will be high production cost for the cement industry, higher cement price, and then there is scarcity of alternative fuel source and difficult to get a permit for alternative fuel development. The option is joint venture with the investor to implement pay per tariff. For example, when investment of the solar cell panel. So the cement industry will be paid to investor is like to PLN using rupiah per kilowatt hour, and then do market development and develop long-term contract for alternative fuel, and also do government engagement. And now let's continue to the next slide.
After identifying the scenario implication and options, the company should identify the early warning signal. For instance, when there is more coal substitutes, reduce in coal usage, early talks regarding draft bill, increase efficiency and renewable energy, it is likely that gray scenario will unfold. Next, when there is oversupply in the market and low environment friendly enforcement, it is likely that the black area will occur. And next, when there is a lot of demand in the market, no coal substitute, global turbulence in the geopolitics and demands occurs, it is likely that the yellow scenario will unfold. And finally, when there is a global warming issue worsen, a trend in developed countries regarding environmental friendly, and the implementation plan of carbon tax, it is likely that the green scenario will happen. Okay. After going all of the steps from determining user, identifying key focal issue, evaluating driving force, selecting critical uncertainties, preparing scenarios frameworks, narrative, implication options, and early warning signals. Now the company can use the scenario frameworks against any plausible features, consider available option, and take the best decision for the company. Thank you.